the most ignored jewels of the British royal queens. The jewels that Queen Elizabeth secretly loathed. Billions of pounds, centuries of history, and yet some of the most extraordinary jewels ever crafted quietly gathered dust in the dark. Not because they were forgotten, because they were refused. These are the jewels that Britain's queens touched, and then quietly, deliberately put away. Some were too heavy, some were too political, some were simply too much of someone else, and one was so despised it was passed off like a hot coal. This is the story of the jewels that royalty couldn't bear to wear. Queen Mary's giant chokers. Queen Mary had a neck built for jewels. Long, pale and swan-like, it was practically a velvet pedestal, and she knew it. In 1901, she commissioned Garrard to craft the Love Trophy collar, 7 diamond panels in the Louis XVI style featuring bows, quivers and torches encircled by laurel wreaths, diamonds taken from heirlooms gifted by her own grandmother, the Duchess of Cambridge. It sat magnificently high on her neck, gleaming in every portrait, a choker so bold it doubled as armour. Then there was her 11-row pearl choker, the City of London choker, a pearl and diamond collarette gifted by the citizens of London for her 1893 wedding, and the Art Deco emerald choker made by Garrard in 1921 from emeralds presented to her by the ladies of India. Stacked, layered, towering, Queen Mary wore them all without apology. And then she died, and the chokers simply stopped. Queen Elizabeth II inherited several of these magnificent pieces in 1953 and wore virtually none of them in the style her grandmother had intended. The reason? Brutally simple. Elizabeth had a shorter neck. These wide, tall chokers that rode elegantly on Queen Mary's long throat looked strangling and stiff on a more compact frame. There was no announcement, no explanation. The jewels were simply set aside. The Art Deco emerald choker sat unworn by Elizabeth for years, until she finally gave it away as a wedding gift to Princess Diana in 1981. Diana, in her inimitable fashion, wore it to Australia in 1984, not as a necklace but as a headband across her forehead. The moment became one of the most iconic royal jewellery photographs ever taken. A choker. Queen Elizabeth couldn't wear on her neck. Diana wore across her brow. History, redirected by a hairband. The Delhi Durbar stomacher. In 1911, as King George V and Queen Mary sailed to India to be proclaimed Emperor and Empress, Garrard crafted something astonishing, the Delhi Durbar parure, a complete suite of diamonds and Cambridge emeralds, assembled for the grandest imperial ceremony of the 20th century. At its heart sat the stomacher, a vast architecturally complex corsage ornament designed to cover the entire bodice of a gown. It incorporated the heart-shaped Cullinan 5 brooch at its centre, a carved emerald scroll element below, and multiple sections that could be worn separately as individual brooches. 7 Cambridge emeralds, Cullinan diamonds, pure imperial theatre. Queen Mary wore the complete stomacher exactly once, at the Delhi Durbar itself, on December 12, 1911. King George V wrote to his mother that May had worn her best tiara. After India, the parure was broken into its component brooches, and the stomacher as a unified whole was never reassembled for public wear again. Queen Elizabeth II inherited it in 2002, and the complete stomacher form remained unworn. Why? Because by the 21st century, stomachers were simply unwearable. Enormous architectural panels designed for an era of structured gowns and iron corseted bodices. Modern evening wear has no means of supporting them. The engineering required to attach one to a contemporary dress is a feat of royal tailoring few are willing to attempt. A stomacher built for an empress, rendered obsolete by the zip. It remains in the vault today, a masterpiece with nowhere to go. But here is a thought no one has dared say aloud. Those 7 Cambridge emeralds locked inside the stomacher's frame could be remounted into a magnificent emerald and diamond coronation necklace for Queen Camilla, or better still, a statement parure for Catherine, the future queen. The stones already carry the Cullinan legacy. All they need is the occasion. Queen Mary's diamond losange bandeau. It was geometric, it was Art Deco, it was Cartier, and for nearly a century no one knew where it was. Queen Mary commissioned this distinctive diamond bandeau sometime in the early 1910s, its surface covered in diamond lozenges, rhombus shapes, framed by rows of pearls along the top and base. She wore it to theatre premieres in the 1930s and 1940s, to Leicester Square in 1935, to Sadler's Wells in 1939, to the Odeon in 1946. Then, in 1948, she sent it on ahead to a freshly 18-year-old Princess Margaret, who wore it at Queen Juliana's inauguration in Amsterdam. It was Margaret's first public tiara moment. She wore it occasionally throughout the 1950s and into the 1960s, last appearing in a formal portrait in 1965. And then it vanished. No record, no explanation. For 6 decades, royal jewel experts assumed it was locked in the vault. Queen Elizabeth II never wore it, not once, and after Margaret's death in 2002, it simply disappeared from view entirely. Then, in 2024, royal enthusiast Saad Salman was in Malaysia for a royal wedding in the Sultanate of Pahang and caught a familiar sparkle on the head of a princess. A close examination confirmed Queen Mary's diamond lozenge bandeau had been sold at a New York auction in 1988, purchased on the recommendation of Princess Chulabhorn of Thailand for the then Crown Princess of Pahang. It had been worn at Malaysian royal banquets, ceremonies and weddings for 36 years, while Britain assumed it was asleep in a vault. It had in fact left Britain entirely. A Cartier tiara worth an estimated £5 million, now thriving at Malaysian royal ceremonies. And the British royals? They have no idea what they gave away. The Strathmore Rose Tiara. In 1923, the Earl of Strathmore gave his daughter a wedding gift wrapped in diamonds, a tiara of wild, detachable rose blossoms, each bloom removable and wearable as a brooch. Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon wore it low across her brow in the fashion of the flapper era, romantic, young, incandescent. She was about to become the Duchess of York, and she had no idea she would one day be queen. The tiara glittered, then it disappeared into the vault for over 60 years. The Queen Mother, who wore the piece in her youth, appeared to set it aside completely as her role and age evolved. When she died in 2002, it passed to Queen Elizabeth II, who never touched it either. Not once in 20 years of ownership. No portrait, no banquet, no state occasion. Why? The Strathmore Rose is a young woman's tiara, small, whimsical, floral. It belongs to the language of a bride or a debutante, not a sovereign. Elizabeth, who spent 70 years wearing the language of monarchy, would no sooner wear this delicate confection than she would wear a flower crown to a state opening. It wasn't contempt, it was context. Then, in November 2023, 100 years after it was made, Catherine, Princess of Wales, wore it to a state banquet. The roses blazed again. A tiara that had waited a century for the right face finally found it, but it never found Elizabeth's. The Cambridge Sapphire Parure Tiara. Some jewels outlive their era. The Cambridge Sapphire Parure is one of them. Originally assembled in the early 19th century, it features sapphires and diamonds in a style that reads as emphatically, unapologetically Victorian, bold, dark, stoned and unyieldingly formal. Queen Mary wore it. Then it passed down the line and landed in Elizabeth II's collection, where it sat largely unworn, a heavy Victorian relic in a modernising royal wardrobe. Elizabeth's jewel choices consistently leaned toward brighter, lighter stones. Sapphires spoke to Princess Diana, to Catherine. But in this setting, in this scale, the parure asked too much. It currently sits in the vault, unworn, unloaned, unspoken for. Not even Camilla, who has bravely resurrected several forgotten heirlooms, has touched it. A full parure, tiara, necklace, earrings, sleeping. All it would take is one state banquet, one confident queen, one moment of revival. Queen Alexandra's Cartier Collier Résille. It was made for a woman who wore jewellery like armour, and it shows. In 1904, Queen Alexandra commissioned Cartier to create her Collier Résille, a diamond fishnet choker, the mesh set with detachable cabochon emerald and ruby drops, the stones gifted by Indian Maharajas. Alexandra wore it famously, with Queen Victoria's small diamond crown and the Koh-i-Noor diamond for a formal portrait that still hangs in the white drawing room at Buckingham Palace. When she died in 1925, it passed to Queen Mary, who wore it in 1934 for a portrait alongside her Kokoshnik tiara, Cullinan diamonds swinging as pendants from its ruby drops. Then Mary died in 1953, and the Collier Résille passed to Queen Elizabeth II, who never wore it, not once, not in 70 years of reign. The reason, perhaps, is structural. Queen Alexandra's love of towering chokers was born in part from a practical secret. She had a small scar on her neck from a childhood operation, and high, wide necklaces were her elegant solution. The style was intrinsically hers, inseparable from the woman who invented it. For Elizabeth, already navigating the politics of what jewels she chose to wear and when, slipping on Queen Alexandra's most intensely personal piece may have felt like wearing a costume rather than a crown. The fishnet sits in the vault today, confirmed still present in the royal collection as recently as 2012. Royal watchers hope it will appear on Queen Camilla, who has already revived several of Alexandra's long-forgotten pieces in recent years. The Collier Résille deserves a neck worthy of it. It is still waiting. The pearl and diamond stomacher. Before tiaras, before sautoirs, before the cocktail ring, there was the stomacher. A vast, jewelled panel worn on the front of a gown. It was the ultimate status symbol of the 17th and 18th centuries, designed to dominate an entire bodice. The British Royal Collection holds several extraordinary examples, grand cascades of diamonds and pearls assembled for queens who wore structured, boned gowns that could actually bear their weight. By the time Queen Mary was collecting in earnest in the early 20th century, stomachers were already antique curiosities. She loved them anyway, acquiring and wearing several, including her famous diamond stomacher, with its layered swags and scrolls. After Queen Mary, they fell silent. Queen Elizabeth II inherited multiple examples from her grandmother and her mother, and wore none of them as stomachers in their original form, because modern dresses simply cannot accommodate them. The engineering is impossible. These are jewels built for an architecture of dress that no longer exists, yet the diamonds within them are extraordinary, clear, brilliant, historic. Here lies the most compelling case for creative repurposing in the entire royal collection. The stones from a pearl and diamond stomacher could, without disturbing a single historic record, be reimagined as a spectacular coronation necklace for Catherine, Princess of Wales, or a dramatic choker suite for Camilla. Queen Mary herself repurposed jewels constantly, dismantling and rebuilding with fearless creativity. Her successors have been more timid. These stones deserve a new life. The sapphire and diamond tiara. Princess Margaret accumulated a small but striking personal tiara collection, and one of its quietest members is a sapphire and diamond tiara associated with her in the latter part of her life. Unlike her dramatic Baltimore tiara, the one she bought herself at auction in 1959, that she wore to her own wedding and famously wore in a bathtub photograph, this sapphire piece was more understated. Where Margaret usually chose drama, here was something restrained, and perhaps that is precisely why it was rarely seen. Margaret's tiaras either made headlines or gathered dust. This one gathered dust. After her death in 2002, it was not seen publicly. It was neither loaned out by the palace nor exhibited. It sits now in the shadow of the flashier pieces, in a vault that grows more crowded with each passing decade. Margaret, who broke royal tradition by purchasing her own wedding tiara instead of borrowing from the vaults, would perhaps find it grimly amusing that her quietest jewel is the most thoroughly ignored of all. The vault holds more secrets than we know. Every generation of British queens inherits a universe of jewels, and every generation makes choices. What they wear tells you who they are. What they refuse to wear tells you something deeper. Elizabeth II was not sentimental about other women's jewels. She was precise, controlled, and deliberate. A monarch who wore what served her image and set aside what didn't, without explanation or apology. But here is the truth those vaults whisper. History is not over for these jewels. The Collier Résille could still grace a state banquet. The stomacher's diamonds could still live in a new form on a future queen's throat. The sapphire parure could still have its moment. Jewellery does not age. It waits. Queen Mary repurposed, reimagined and revived jewels her whole life. Catherine, Princess of Wales, who will one day be queen, has already shown a remarkable instinct for exactly the same thing, wearing the Strathmore rose, the lotus flower, pieces untouched for decades. The next chapter of these ignored jewels may not be written in a vault. It may be written at a coronation. The question is not whether these jewels will be worn again. The question is, who will be brave enough to wear them? Subscribe for more stories from the royal vaults. What jewel do you think deserves to come back? Comment below.